Hey, what's up guys, Diplex here again. Welcome back to another video. Now, we're gonna round up the weekend with a classic tug-of-war set in a deserty Middle Eastern battlefield. Of course, we're talking Russia versus USA, and well, who's got the better armed forces? We're about to find out. Do remember, of course, this is a game, but I do believe we're going to have a rather hot discussion down in the comment section below, but do keep it civil. The reason why I'm even bothering with this is because we're using the vanilla game and all of its units. There are 4 different tiers of units. We have tier 2, tier 3, tier 4, and tier 5. The numbers are absolutely even, of course, and since we're using the standard vanilla multiplayer units, they are balanced to fight each other, so the tiers should be evenly stacked and matched when it comes to skill, HP, weapon proficiency, all that stuff. Alright guys, let's get the battle started. So on the right side of the screen, 36 U.S. Army regulars are going to be entering the battlefield, and to their opposite side, on the left side of the screen, 36 Russian Army regulars. It's going to be interesting to see how this first engagement takes off. We've got groups of infantry moving in, going for different areas. Okay, contact. Grenades are being fired. Oh! I'm surprised he survived that one. That was a pretty direct hit. And the fight is on. We're going to try and get some close-ups here of the infantry because this is a particularly good-looking game. So there's lots of cool effects and units to be looking at. Whoa! We're going to see a few boxes be blown away by what I believe is the Russian GP-25. The US is using the M203 when it comes to grenade launching. So they're quite aggressive, taking the center here, moving up lots of troops. The Russians have established themselves in a bit of a defensive line here instead, not really being as aggressive to take the control of the center. A lot of good hits there. That's going to force the US to pull back a bit. You don't want to overextend. Okay, we got Russians up in the watchtower. One at least, he was blown back and killed, but very cool indeed. And on the flanks, we have 6 men per team fighting as well. Now, these Russians here on the right side seem to be mostly engaging the US troops in the center. We're going to see what the US squad is doing here. Yeah, they seem to be among the buildings, shooting as well. And on the opposite side of the map, yeah, this is a separate fight. We got Russians moving up, or actually the Americans are advancing. The Russians are a bit pushed back currently, but I don't think any of the two teams have taken any casualties here on this flank. This is really cool. This reminds me of Squad, actually. And the next wave has been deployed. So on the right side of the screen, we have Russian VDV infantry moving in. 24 men here for each team. We've got US Marines on the opposite side of the map. Now we're going to see more sniper rifles be introduced. So the US troops here from the first wave have pushed the Russians back significantly and are now actually attacking the second Russian wave being deployed. That's pretty crazy. This guy's got a semi-automatic shotgun, so that's quite handy in close encounters. No pun intended. I mean, I guess everyone knows who likes to keep a shotgun for close encounters, but still. Those tier 2 units of the US being dealt with rather quickly here by the tier 3 Russian VDV. We haven't seen many Marines move up now. I think we're seeing a larger number here on the right side. Yes, they are moving up, supporting the U.S. Army regulars, and they are putting a lot of pressure on the Russians now. Okay, so the third wave and tier has been deployed. This is tier 4. And for the Russians, that means guard infantry. 18 in total. And the US have brought in Army Rangers. All the units are very easily distinguished, at least for the US. They have different types of uniforms and helmets. Same goes for the Russians, at least tier 4 and 5, which would be the final 2. Tier 2 and 3, which would be the first 2 waves, are harder to distinguish because the the Russian Army regulars and VDV look very similar in this game. I think the VDV has like balaclavas and stuff like that. And the fourth and final wave has been deployed. Tier 5. On the Russian side, we're looking at SPETSNAZ with silenced weapons. Looking very cool in their desert uniforms. I mean, they remind me a lot of like Battlefield 3 and 4. Love the sounds, by the way. And we should be looking at US Navy SEAL here on the opposite side of the map, with quite a lot more breathing room when it comes to the deployment phase. So 8 per team, all deployed in the center, none on the flanks. How are we doing here on the right side? The Russians are still fighting the Americans, but it doesn't look too good for them. They're being kind of pushed back by a mix of US units. We're looking at Army Rangers, Marines, and some remaining Army Regulars. And on the opposite side, we're going to skip the center for a second, the US dominate this side as well. So you never know how a battle is going to end. There's an Army Ranger firing from the corner of a building. He's going to be pushed back as well by the Guard Infantry, which is the equivalent to his tier group as a Ranger. Look at this back-to-back here. Oh my god. Oh, the SPETSNAZ, though, at range, and that machine gun up close is going to be deadly. I believe that's a Peshnig. He's shot dead. Oh, M240 in the tower. How awesome is that? U.S. Army Rangers right now occupying it. That's an M240. I spot a SCAR as well as an M4. Some are gonna trade places. We're looking at Navy SEALs actually enter the tower now. That's awesome. Look at him. Yeah, the U.S. just have this locked down. There's not much cover for the Russian SPETSNAZ. So they might actually pull back. They're all prone. They've got excellent accuracy. But right now we can see the flanking party on the left side here come down. a mix of U.S. Army units. Oh! And on the right side, the Russians are doing slightly better than the left side, but not too good at all. There are 3 men here. 2 guard infantrymen and what I believe is 1 VDV soldier with a RPK machine gun. I think that's the RPK 76, right? 74? It's in Escape from Tarkov. I just can't remember the name of it, but it's the exact same gun with the same magazine. So this is almost more interesting to look at than the center fight, because this one's so decided. Yeah, the SPETSNAZ troops were forced back. Once again, this is a multiplayer map, okay? So it's meant to be balanced, and all the tiers are the same. I've given them the exact same number, and I've deployed them fairly on each side of the battlefield. I really want to do a second and possibly deciding battle set in the snow. We're going to use the same units, but they are going to look very differently with their winter uniforms. It'll look super cool. I think the Russians... I mean, symbolically, it would make sense for the Russians to win that. I know the United States isn't set in the desert, but a large part of it is actually very barren and warm, so more so than the Russian plains, I suppose. I just feel like snow and winter is something you connect to Russia more than America, of course. Maybe not Canada, but, you know, that might be equal. But still, no, actually, Russia is the country in the world where you just, if you think of winter, you think of a Russian winter. That's about as bad as it gets, and as cold as it gets, I do suppose. But anyway, guys, that's the end of the battle. We're going to take a look at casualties, perhaps even figure out where did it go wrong for the Russians. So we're going to mark the U.S. casualties in red, and we're going to mark the Russian casualties in yellow. Looking at it from this perspective, there's nothing that should imply that the Americans have an advantage in terms of terrain. This is extremely equal. Same goes for the center here. In fact, the Russians have more barricades and stronger fortifications. The US had beds. Like, what are you going to do with beds, right? They were fucking blowing crates all over the place. But you can't argue with who won. And I think it's mainly due to the fact that the Americans came in on the flank. By having manpower here close to the center, they could deal a lot of damage to the Russians. Look at some of these grenades landing back here. I don't dislike the number of grenades being used. I think it's cool. They don't do crazy damage. We see some be hit and not die instantly, so it's not crazy. In fact, I think it's rather balanced. But anyway, so the US are going to secure the first victory. Please, if you have any complaints about the result, do leave it to the comment section below without including me too much. I've really tried my best to do this as fairly as possible. No custom units, no, you know, tampering with any of the proficiencies or skill levels. This is all vanilla game based on the tiers, and that's meant to be balanced in a multiplayer sense, so it would be balanced in this battle. But do look forward to number 2, which would be a snowy battle as far as I'm concerned. And if you guys want to see it now, let me know and I can start working on it straight away. If you want to wait a bit and let this result sink in, then we can hold it off until next weekend. You guys have a good evening, good morning, good day, good afternoon, whatever you're doing. Have a good time, and I hope you enjoyed watching this video. My name's been Diplex, and I'll see you in the next one. Ciao.